Hello and welcome to my PowerPoint 8.3 Administrating Fitness Tests. Firstly, here is my client profile where I gathered information about my client. Next, I had a consultation with my client to get to know a bit more information about him and the sport that he plays, and possibly some components of fitness that he struggles with. Next was the components of fitness I wanted to test, the test for that component, and how to carry it out. The first component of fitness I wanted to test was agility, and I chose the Illinois agility test to do so. The protocol for this was 4 cones used to mark the start, finish and the 2 turning points. Another 4 cones are placed down at the centre and equal distance apart from one another. Each cone in the centre is spaced 3.3 metres apart. Participants should lie on their front and hands by their shoulders. On the command, the stopwatch is started and the athlete gets up as quickly as possible and runs around the course in the direction indicated, without knocking the cones over, to the finish line, and at that point the timing is stopped. The second component of fitness I wanted to test was power. I chose the standing vertical jump to do so. The protocol for this is that the athlete stands with the tape around the waist, keeping the feet flat on the ground. The distance between the floor and the waist of the participant is recorded. This is called the standing reach height. The athlete then stands and leaps vertically as high as possible, using both arms and legs to assist in projecting the body upwards. The results are then recorded. The third component of fitness was speed. I chose the 30-metre sprint test and adapted it with a basketball. The protocol for this was that the participant must start behind a line marked 30 metres away from the finish line. When the participant is told to do so, or instructed to, they must run as fast as they can with the basketball past the finish line, whilst being recorded by their partner or the tester. Both the participant's body and feet must be firmly behind the line before beginning. The fourth component of fitness is aerobic capacity. I chose the yo-yo test to test this, and the protocol for this is that the subject starts on or behind the middle line and begins running 20 metres when instructed. The subject turns and returns to the starting point when signalled by the recorded beep. There is an active recovery period interjected between every 20-metre shuttle, during which the subject must walk or jog around the other cone and return to the starting point. The fifth component of fitness was muscular endurance. I chose the press-up test to test this, and the protocol for this was that the participant begins the test with the hands and toes touching the floor, the body and legs in a straight line, feet slightly apart, the arms at shoulder width part extended at a right angle to the body. Keeping the back and knees straight, the subject lowers the body to a predetermined point to touch some other object, or until there is a 90-degree angle at the elbows. They then return back to the starting position with the arms extended. The action is repeated, and the test continues up until exhaustion, or until they can do no more with the rhythm, and they have reached the number of target of push-ups. The sixth and final component of fitness is flexibility. I chose the sit and reach test to test this. The protocol for this is that the participant sits on the floor with their legs straight out. Their knees must be flat against the ground. The participant should then move their feet up to the bench or sit and reach box. Their shoes removed and the soles of their feet flat up upon the box. Then, as the participant begins to stretch, the hands should be placed over one another and the participant's measurement should be recorded. This was the PAR Q I had my participant fill out. It determined if my client had any underlying health issues I needed to be aware of before proceeding with the tests. As you can see, he answered them with all no's, so there was no underlying issues that I was aware of before he began my tests. This was the informed consent sheet that I had my client complete before exercise, so he was responsible for his actions and his exercise. These were the reasons I would defer or terminate tests. For example, if my client were to arrive ill to test day, then I would defer him from completing any tests due to health reasons. This was my risk assessment I recorded to ensure that my client was safe whilst completing the tests. This was my test justifications for why I wanted to carry out these tests on my participant. Firstly, the Illinois agility test. I chose to train agility because when playing basketball, movement around the court requires high level of agility and speed throughout. To be able to dribble past opponents. The Illinois agility test is perfect for finding out how my client moves and what his level of agility was. The test is quick and easy to set up with little equipment needed. Next was power and the standing vertical jump. I chose power as it is a component of fitness that is used a lot throughout basketball, and the standing vertical jump was even more appropriate. The standing vertical jump mirrors that of a basketballer jumping to catch, shoot, or dunk balls. Dunking balls is by shooting the ball down through the basket with the hands above the rim. This requires high level of power in the legs to be able to reach the rim. Next was speed and the 30-metre sprint test. Speed is a very important component of fitness needed in basketball. I chose the 30-metre sprint test because the basketball court is 28.65 metres, so very similar to 30, making it valid and suggestible. I adapted this test slightly by making my client sprint the 30 metres with a basketball in hand, making it more valid. Next was aerobic capacity and the yo-yo test. High levels of aerobic capacity is needed in all basketballers, so it is easier to maintain exercise for longer periods of time. The yo-yo test is more efficient than a bleep test as it represents a game sport such as basketball. This is my justification for choosing it. Muscular endurance and the press-up test. As well as it's important to be able to shoot and catch, it's also important to be physically strong, as basketball is a physical sport with contact involved. I chose muscular endurance as it's a physical sport and therefore being physical for long periods of time is important. The press-up test is perfect test for finding out their physical power and strength. Lastly was the flexibility and the sit and reach test. Being flexible in sports is not stereotypically heard of, other than gymnastics, for example, but is needed much more than you think. I specifically chose flexibility because basketballers need this to ensure their jumps are efficient and more powerful. It's also very useful when sprinting using high levels of agility, helping to prevent muscles tearing or injury. Here is me administrating some of the tests with my client. This is my test data collection sheet. It is the client's results next to the normative data. After the tests, I then evaluated and recommended things for my client. First was the Illinois agility test. My client recorded results of 17, 18 and 17.2 seconds. Against the normative data, my client is in the average category as he scored an average of 17.4 seconds. As my client plays basketball, lots of agility is needed, and this means that his agility score may have to improve. I then recommended things for my client to take on. Firstly, why I recommended this. Ladder training. Ladder agility drills are an excellent way to improve foot speed, agility, coordination, balance, and overall quickness. It's perfect for training basketball movement as it mirrors what would happen when dodging an opponent. You can even adapt this to make it more valid by adding a basketball. How hard should you train? To be able to improve the level of agility needed, you will have to train hard and make sure you're working in 75 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. This ensures that you're working hard enough without causing injury. The specifications for this drill. Start at the top of the ladder, cross over the legs backwards and forwards, 1 foot landing in each gap every time. Use your arms to swivel across the ladder. Start slowly by almost walking through the ladder and speed up as you get used to it. Continuously going through the ladder improves the progress of the agility levels. How often to use this? To be able to achieve the excellent category, this should be used every day in 15 to 20 minute bursts. It is a quick way to train agility and there is less chance of DOMS, which are delayed onset muscle soreness. Therefore, this should be done every day. Avoid training on game days. For example, in a specific training session, this can be done more than once, and to improve this can be done with a break in between, and then continue practice afterwards. Suitable training areas. This should be preferably done indoors on a safe, non-slip and stable surface. The standing vertical jump test. My client recorded results of 58, 60 and 58 centimetres. Against the normative data, my client achieved an average of 58.6 centimetres, which is in the above average category. This is a strong component of fitness for my client. Basketball, which is my client's sport, needs high levels of power in the legs for vertical jumping for key moments of the game, such as shooting. Recommendations for the standing vertical jump. Why I recommended this. The standing vertical jump is a test for finding the power in the client's legs. Squatting is a way of training the legs to build muscle types. Different types of squat train different muscles in the legs. Certain squats mirror that of basketball movement, shooting and catching the ball. How hard should you train? The squatting should be done repeatedly and quickly, and it should push you to your limits. Improving the power in your legs will involve using weights and building them up over time to keep improving power. Specifications. Squatting with a weight. This involves a certain weight lifted above the head and then squatting with it. That is 1 rep. To improve power, 5 to 10 reps should be done. As you improve, more reps can be added, and also weight. Other examples of squats are squat jumps and sumo squat jack. How often to use this? Squatting can be done every other day. Squatting can cause lactic acid in the legs and DOMS. Therefore, taking a day off in between exercise on the legs will ensure prevention of injury. Squatting can take in between 15 to 20 minutes to complete different sets. Suitable training areas. Squatting can be done anywhere using an indoor facility. The 30-metre sprint test. My client recorded results of 4.33, 4.23 and 4.2 seconds. Against the normative data, my client achieved an average score of 4.25 seconds for the 30-metre sprint, which is deemed above average. As my client is a basketballer, I would expect this, as high levels of speed are needed to compete at the level he was at. Recommendations for the 30-metre sprint test. Wall drives. Why I recommended this. Speed is an integral part of basketball, and having high levels can mean that you are quicker than your opponent. Wall drives also mimic a basketballer driving up to the hoop. Wall drives don't require equipment and are a very effective way of increasing speed. How hard should you train? Wall drives require you to work hard as this builds muscle in the legs which help you to become quicker. So ensure there is a break in between squats and the drives because they both require lots of hard work. Specifications. Stand in front of a wall in the 2-point stance as shown in the picture above. Drive into the wall like shown above at speed. 1 rep is when you have driven both legs up. 20 to 25 reps are normal to begin, but increase this to train harder and become quicker. How often to use this? Wall drives are short bursts of energy to mimic driving upwards and therefore cause DOMs. Wall drives should be completed every other day alongside the squats to reduce DOM days. Wall drives take between 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Suitable training areas. All you need to be able to complete wall drives is a wall and a stable surface underneath your legs. The surface would have to be non-slip because your feet will use it for control and balance. The yo-yo test. My client recorded results of 14.1, 15.1 and 15.4 level. Against the normative data, my client's average score for the yo-yo test was 14.8, which is in the below average section. I would expect a high level, but this is something that can be improved for the future. The yo-yo test, which tests aerobic capacity, is very important to a games player such as a basketballer. It's far more appropriate than the bleep test, but I wouldn't expect a below average score for my client. Recommendations for the yo-yo test: aerobic training with intervals. Why I recommend this? Aerobic capacity is one of the most important components of fitness for basketballers. Therefore, aerobic training that uses intervals increases the client's aerobic capacity, making it easier to run around the court for longer periods of time. How hard you should train? When aerobically training with intervals, you should be working at your kilometre speed, split up into intervals to break it up. Aerobic training is difficult to train, so commitment from the client is needed. Specifications. To improve your aerobic capacity, you need to complete 20 to 30 minutes of work at your 3 to 5 kilometre race pace, broken down into intervals. This means working at the same pace you'd do 3 to 5 kilometres, but split up so it becomes much easier. You will then have 50 to 80% of the interval time added as recovery. How often to use this? Aerobic interval training is important to improve your aerobic capacity and so should be done on a weekly basis. There should be a week in between each session to avoid injury or lactic acid build-up. Suitable training areas. Choose a spot where there's space to move around and room to run around. Preferably a sports hall or an open, flat field. The press-up test. My client recorded results of 22, 25 and 24 press-ups. Against the normative data, my client achieved an average score of 23, which means he's categorised as average for this test. Muscular endurance is an important part of basketball, and I'd like to improve my client's press-up score for the future. Recommendations for the press-up tests: bicep curl. Why I recommend this? I recommend that bicep curls are done to improve and build muscular endurance. Building muscular endurance will mean he'll be able to sustain repeated contractions against the resistance for an extended period of time. How hard you should train? In order to build the correct amount of muscular endurance, bicep curls have to be trained hard. Progressive overload here is key in order to train properly. Specifications: the client should select a weight that is appropriate, raise the arm to 45 degrees and flex the arm and then extend it. Repeat this action one after the other. One of these actions is 1 repetition. Adding extra weight and extra repetitions will help increase more muscle mass. This is called progressive overload. How often to use this? Bicep curls should be completed every other day. Repetitions can be added to increase levels of muscular endurance. Bicep curls take between 15 and 20 minutes, depending on how many repetitions are done. They should be completed using the correct technique. Suitable training areas. Bicep curls are usually done in the gym environment. Large selections of weight are available. There are also visible mirrors so the athletes are able to view themselves before perform the correct technique. The sit and reach test. My client recorded results of 28, 27 and 27 centimetres. Against the normative data, my client's average score achieved for this test was 27 centimetres, which is categorised as excellent. The importance of flexibility in basketball is overlooked, and so I'm happy that my client achieved an excellent score here. Recommendations for the sit and reach test. Stretching. Why I recommend this? Flexibility ensures that you maintain optimal mobility of all your joints, and I think it is a very important component of fitness to have in basketball. I recommended stretching to improve flexibility because in basketball it's important to be able to swivel, change direction and move very quickly. How hard you should train? Stretching is not a hard skill to master, it is something that should be done very regularly though. Stretching should be done as regularly as possible but should not be hard or painful for the client. Specifications. When stretching the hamstring, the feet should be shoulder width apart. Move the hands slowly down to the ground with the hamstring straight and the knees not bent. Lean down as far as you can to stretch the muscles without causing too much pain. Once you think you've stretched enough, stop and hold it. How often to use this? Stretching should be done every day, after every training session, game and as a morning routine. I recommend that specific days of the week are dedicated to certain locations of muscles. This ensures all muscles are accounted for. As well as it reduces DOMs, it also enables you to find your flexibility and enables you to improve this through regular stretching and also by pushing you further. Suitable training areas. Stretching can literally be done anywhere. This can be from anywhere from the shower to a sports hall.